Lena never expected a dusty old key to change everything. After her grandfather's passing, she inherited his crumbling Victorian house, and with it, a mystery. Tucked away in the attic was a locked chest, its surface etched with symbols she didn't recognize. The moment the key turned, Lena uncovered a letter addressed to her, in handwriting she'd know anywhere, her mother's. But how? Her mother had vanished years ago, leaving no trace. Until now. Welcome to Inspiring Stories. Lena Carter stood in the dim attic of her grandfather's old Victorian home, brushing dust from her forehead as scorching late summer heat weighed on her. Shafts of sunlight drifted through the small circular window, illuminating piles of boxes, crumpled newspapers, and relics of decades long gone. She'd been sorting through her grandfather's belongings for the upcoming estate sale when she noticed one particular floorboard was slightly ajar. Kneeling, she pried it free and found a small wooden chest, the kind that looked polished by years of care. Her breath caught. She'd never seen this box, and her grandfather had never spoken of it. A ring of keys she'd discovered in his nightstand didn't fit the ornate brass lock. Then she remembered a small, oddly shaped key taped to the bottom of his favorite coffee mug. That key slid into the lock perfectly. Turning with a click, she lifted the lid, releasing a faint scent of lavender and old paper. Right on top lay a photograph showing a young woman with the same high cheekbones and dark, wavy hair as Lena. The woman stood before a lighthouse, her smile filled with joy. On the back, in her grandfather's handwriting, was the caption, "Claire at Holloway Point, June 1989. Lena's heart pounded. Claire was her mother's name, but she looked younger than Lena had ever seen. Beneath the photo was a bundle of letters tied with a blue ribbon. Lena carefully opened the top one. The handwriting, delicate and flowing, was so unlike her grandfather's. "My dearest Henry, I can't tell you how much your last letter meant to me. These months apart are unbearable, but knowing you're keeping her safe gives me strength. She looks more like you every day, don't you think? Someday we can all be together properly, when this is over. Until then, remember our signal. The upstairs light means it's safe to write. Burn this as always. All my love, Clary." Shock jolted Lena. Her mother's name was Claire, but these letters addressed someone named Henry, her grandfather using a pet name, Clary. The text hinted at danger, secrecy, and someone who had to be kept hidden. She read on, discovering more cryptic messages referencing a child's safety and impending threats. The dates spanned from 1988 to 1991, then abruptly stopped. At the bottom of the chest, Lena found a final letter sealed in an envelope with her own name on it, written 2 days before her mother disappeared when Lena was only 5. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "My darling Lena, if you're reading this, you found my most precious secrets. I'm sorry I couldn't watch you grow up. Leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was the only way to keep you safe. Your grandfather will explain everything when the time is right. Until then, trust no one who asks about the lighthouse. The key to everything is where the waves still whisper. Look for the light. My love, it will guide you home. All my love forever, Mom." Tears blurred Lena's vision. Her mother, gone for over 2 decades, was suddenly real again. Why had her mother fled? Why had no one spoken of these letters or the references to hidden danger? Below the letters lay a small leather-bound notebook filled with strange financial records, dates, amounts, unfamiliar initials. Stuck inside its back cover was a map of the Maine coastline, marked with a red X near Holloway Cove, labeled "Where the Waves Whisper." As Lena lifted the map, something metallic clinked against the chest. She picked up a heavy, rusted keychain shaped like a lighthouse, etched with an address, 17 Cove Road. The sound of the grandfather clock striking 4 downstairs made Lena jump. She realized she'd spent far longer in the attic than intended. Carefully replacing the chest and floorboard, she slipped the map, the letter, and the large key into her pocket. She needed answer zones that might lie at Holloway Cove. In the hallway, her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, appeared bearing a casserole. The woman took one look at Lena's dust-covered clothes. "Find anything interesting up there?" she asked. "Oh, just old clothes and books." Lena lied with a forced smile. Mrs. Henderson frowned. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm just tired. Lena offered a brittle laugh. After the neighbor left, Lena glanced out the window. Thinking of the ocean only a few miles away, she vowed to drive to Holloway Cove first thing in the morning. Sleep came in fragments, her mind churning with images of lighthouses and cryptic letters. She woke before dawn, quickly gathered a backpack, the map, the 2 keys, her mother's final letter, and a flashlight. By the time she set out for Holloway Cove, a gray sunrise glimmered across the horizon. The roads twisted and narrowed. Her GPS kept dropping signal. Towering pines hemmed the route, the air growing saltier as she neared the water. Finally, she spotted a rundown sign marking Cove Road. Following it led her to an overgrown path that culminated in a crumbling stone cottage perched at the very edge of a rocky bluff. The address on the sagging mailbox read 17 Cove Road. Stepping from the car, Lena was struck by the fierce ocean breeze. Overcast skies made the water dark and restless. She approached the cottage's front door, noticing a heavy padlock the rusted key from the chest fit perfectly, opening with an oiled ease that seemed odd given the cottage's abandoned appearance. Inside, the cottage felt frozen in time. Dust coated every surface, yet the furniture remained neatly arranged. A small kitchen table, 2 chairs, a faded floral sofa. On the counter, a chipped ceramic mug still sat beside an empty drying rack. Whoever lived here had left in a hurry, intending to return. The most startling feature was a wall covered in newspaper clippings, photographs, and handwritten notes, all tied together by strands of red string. Approaching carefully, Lena discovered multiple photos of her mother. Her pulse sped. Among the articles was a yellowed clipping from September 1991, featuring a stern-faced man labeled Thomas Cole, circled in red ink. Underneath was a note in her mother's handwriting. Cole knows about the account. He's closing in. Must move documents by the 15th. A floorboard behind her creaked. Lena spun around to see a weathered, salt-and-pepper-haired man standing in the open doorway, wearing fisherman's clothes and a cautious expression. "You're Henry's granddaughter," he said, tone certain. "Lena Carter, right?" Her heart hammered. "Wow, who are you?" He took a step forward, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "Elias Whitmore. I was a friend of your mother's." He glanced at the evidence wall. "Looks like you found her life's work." Lena fought the urge to flee. "You knew her before she disappeared?" Elias nodded, weary lines etching his face. "More than knew her. I helped her hide. Henry said you'd come eventually." He gestured at the photos. "Your mother discovered something big, something that forced her to vanish." The cottage felt colder. Lena's mouth went dry. "My grandfather knew about this place?" Elias gave a sad half-smile. "He's the one who kept it ready all these years, told me to watch out for you." A wave crashed against the rocks below, the noise carrying a sudden menace. "What was my mother working on?" Lena demanded. Elias sighed, nodding at the circled newspaper photo. "Thomas Cole. Local businessman, publicly. But your mother found out he was laundering money millions through fishing operations along the coast. When she discovered proof, he threatened your lives." Eyes wide, Lena looked back at the wall. But how could that make her leave permanently? "She'd uncovered a lot more than simple fraud," Elias explained. "She had records implicating powerful people. That ledger in your bag?" He pointed at the pack slung over Lena's shoulder. "Those financial numbers could have put Cole in prison if the authorities had them at the time." Lena slid the worn leather-bound notebook from her backpack, turning pages of neatly listed transactions. "Is that what she was doing, keeping it safe?" "Partly," Elias said, rising to reveal a loose floorboard. He pried it up, retrieving a faded envelope. "Your mother wrote this for you. Told me to hold on to it until the day you finally showed up." Lena's hand shook as she opened the envelope to find another letter from her mother, accompanied by a second photograph of her mother beside a small, isolated lighthouse. In the letter, her mother apologized for the years of absence, but insisted it was necessary to protect Lena from Cole's reach. She described a hidden location, referencing, "The waves still whisper." The same phrase from the map. There, she hinted, lay the final secret Cole had been searching for. Elias set the envelope aside. Your mother was brilliant. She stashed more than just a ledger. She hid the stolen money, or at least a portion of it. Cole's men have sniffed around for years, but they never found it. Lena stared at the letter, mind spinning. So if Cole hears I'm here, he'll come after you, Elias finished bluntly. We have to move fast. Outside, the gray sky deepened, heavy clouds swirling. Lena placed the letter in her bag. I'm not running, she said fiercely. I want the truth about my mother. Elias offered a grim nod. Then let's go. I'll show you what she wanted you to see. The wind whipped across the rickety pier where Elias kept a small, aged fishing boat. Overhead, storm clouds were rolling in from the Atlantic, the waves cresting high. Lena clutched her bag, fear mingling with adrenaline. Elias cast off the lines, guiding the boat away from shore as the engine sputtered. Only way to reach that lighthouse is by water, Elias yelled over the rising gale. Your mother chose the spot because it's nearly impossible to get to, especially at high tide. Rain pelted down, stinging Lena's face. She clung to the railing, scanning the horizon for any sign of the structure from her mother's photograph. At last, through sheets of rain, she glimpsed a crumbling lighthouse perched on a jagged outcrop of stone. White paint peeled from its walls. Glass in the lantern room looked shattered, but an odd glow flickered within. Lena's skin crawled. That's impossible, Elias muttered. No one's maintained that light in decades. As they neared the outcrop, the boat heaved in the stormy water. Timing their landing carefully, they jumped onto the slippery rocks. Lena's heart hammered at the crashing waves behind her. The old rusted door of the lighthouse was ajar, showing signs of recent use. A battered padlock lay snapped on the ground. Inside, the air smelled of damp stone and ancient oil. A flickering lantern rested on a step of a spiral staircase. Lena traded alarmed glances with Elias. Clearly, they weren't the first to arrive. At the top, in the lantern room, they found the remnants of a hidden compartment behind a damaged wall. Stacks of documents were bound in oilcloth, along with several bundles of old banknotes. Nestled within was a small waterproof case containing a flash drive and a note in her mother's handwriting. For the authorities. These files contain Cole's offshore accounts, front companies, and contacts. Enough to bring down his entire operation. I love you, Lenabe Brave. A creak sounded on the stairs. Lena whirled, spotting a broad-shouldered man with iron-gray hair. Thomas Cole. She recognized him from the newspaper photo. You really think you can steal from me? Cole hissed. That flash drive is mine. Elias stepped forward, knife in hand, voice low. Back off, Cole. Lena's mother died to protect this. You're not taking it. Cole smirked, reaching inside his jacket. The moment felt electric with danger. Thunder clapping overhead. Then a sudden burst of voices echoed below. Flashlight beams cut through the gloom. FBI, drop your weapon. Cole whirled, expression twisting from smug to furious as uniformed officers stormed the lantern room. Lena stood frozen, the drive clutched in her hand. Cole's glare swept over her like a venomous current. Elias lowered his knife, relief pouring through his features. Agents swiftly handcuffed Cole, reading him his rights. The tension in Lena's chest finally eased. One of the agents, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, approached Lena gently. Miss Carter, she said, holding out a phone. There's someone who wants to speak with you. Lena pressed the phone to her ear, trembling. On the other end, she heard a voice she had dreamed about for 23 years. Hello, sweetheart, said her mother, older now, voice rough around the edges but unmistakable. It's time to come home. The storm began to abate as dawn light filtered in behind the thinning clouds. Outside, waves still crashed against the rocks, whispering secrets to the battered shoreline. The FBI agents escorted Cole down the slippery steps. His muttered threats barely reached Lena's ears as she remained in the lantern room, tears burning hot on her cheeks. In the hours that followed, everything blurred into a surreal aftermath. She learned her mother had been working with law enforcement for years under an assumed identity, funneling just enough intel to keep Cole's network in check, waiting until the right moment to retrieve the final evidence. Lena's grandfather had been part of that plan, safeguarding the ledger and the records, trusting that one day his granddaughter would either discover the truth or remain blissfully safe if she never did. Amid the swirl of official statements and questions, Lena found a quiet moment to stand by the broken lantern's window, gazing out across the Atlantic. Elias joined her, placing a warm hand on her shoulder. "Henry would be proud," he said simply. "You did what your mother couldn't do alone." Lena swallowed the lump in her throat. She held the flash drive in her palm, recalling the lines of her mother's final letter. "Look for the light, my loved. Will guide you home." That light had turned out to be more than just a literal beacon. It was the determination to uncover the family truth, even when the path was frightening. By midday, the FBI gave her a ride back to shore, where a familiar figure stood waiting on the rocky beach, a woman with a lined face, dark hair streaked with gray, eyes brimming with unshed tears. Lena froze, heart hammering. She didn't need a name to recognize who it was, her mother, Claire. They approached each other slowly, each uncertain how to bridge the decades. Then Claire opened her arms. Lena stepped forward, feeling her mother's embrace for the first time since she was 5 years old. The tears came in waves, unstoppable. "I'm so sorry," Claire whispered, voice cracking. "I never wanted to leave you. I had threatened to hurt anyone close to me. Your grandfather convinced me it was the only way." Lena felt both heartbreak and relief. "We have so much to talk about." Claire nodded, pressing a shaky kiss to her daughter's temple. "We do, but we have time now." Back at her grandfather's Victorian house, Lena walked through the attic for the last time, the warm August sun streaming through the round window. The estate sale was postponed indefinitely. There were legal matters to settle, and a future she'd barely begun to imagine. The wooden chest, under the floorboard, was gone, turned over to the authorities, its contents now critical evidence against Cole's organization. But she'd kept a few precious pieces: the photograph of her mother in front of the first lighthouse, the map with the red X near Holloway Cove, and both keys. Lena had earned her answers, and she would not relinquish these tokens of her family's long-buried secrets. Claire stood nearby, wearing a soft smile as she lingered in the attic's doorway, uncertain whether to step inside. Lena waved her over. Together, they gazed at the empty space where the chest had been, the dust swirling in the sunbeam. "Grandpa really hid everything here," Lena said softly, "just like you asked him to." Claire's eyes shone. He was braver than he gave himself credit for. She ran her fingertips across the floorboard. "All these years, you were safer if you didn't know, but I hoped one day you'd search and find the truth." Lena thought of Elias, who had risked so much to keep her mother's sanctuary at 17 Cove Road intact, and the absolute rush of terror and exhilaration she'd felt scaling the rocky outcrop to the lighthouse. "It was terrifying," she admitted, "but I wouldn't trade it. I know who you are knowing who I am." They left the attic and went downstairs, where the air felt lighter. In the kitchen, Mrs. Henderson had dropped off yet another casserole. "You two look more like each other every day," the elderly neighbor remarked. Lena and Claire exchanged a glance, a shared understanding in their eyes. That evening, the sun dipped below the horizon in a tapestry of pink and gold. Lena stepped outside alone for a moment, letting the breeze ruffle her hair. In the distance, she heard the faintest echo of the sea. Maybe it was just her imagination, but it felt as though the waves were whispering again, reminding her of a promise fulfilled. She touched the lighthouse keychain in her pocket, the one etched with 17 Cove Road, and the memory of that battered cottage. The ledgers and the flash drive would ensure Cole stayed behind bars for the rest of his life. Her mother was safe, and the years of running were over. There was, at last, a chance for them to rebuild a relationship stolen by fear and secrets. Smiling to herself, Lena closed her eyes and breathed in the summer air. Tomorrow, she'd begin the slow process of forging a new normal, perhaps traveling with her mother to places they once only discussed in old letters. She might even revisit Holloway Cove, not in desperation this time, but in peace, carrying flowers for her grandfather's memory, or simply to sit on the rocky shore, listening to the waves that had whispered through their family story all along.